We're going to start this video actually with the final session of this week. There were 4 sessions in this training week, and 3 out of those 4 sessions were super tough sessions. There were several times where I was like, okay, I hope that worked, because if this isn't better tomorrow, we have big problems. And then tomorrow wasn't much better. And it wasn't until this final session that things really came together, and it was a little touch and go. And this session, therefore, was a sigh of sweet relief that I hadn't totally messed up this whole process with Limra. I had a lot of self doubt this week, and that's mostly not only that I was lacking in success, but I also felt like much of what happened could have been made easier had I had a halter and lead rope at my disposal. And I think that always calls into question, is this the right approach? And am I doing something that is unfair to the horse? And also, is there maybe a different approach or a different way that I'm missing that I should be working on instead of the approach that I chose in these tough moments? So just lots of self-questioning and kind of overarching questioning this week as I progressed in this bridleless start. But here in this final session, you can see that I was able to get some tolt circles and trot circles, depending upon which gait she chooses, around me. And she's sticking close. In fact, she's sticking really close at times, and I'm able to, even though she's close, correct that inside shoulder and ask for a little bit more bend on the circle while also asking for speed. And in a nutshell, that had been what I was trying to achieve most of the week, was better draw, easier trot tolt circles, and overall start to be able to correct some bend on those trot tolt circles. So it did work out in the end, but it was a rocky road there. So the first issue I ran into this week was in our first session, and it involved Limra kicking out at the whips. So I was working her around me in a circle, and then she kicked out pretty violently. And I was working on more forward momentum, so I was using the whips a lot more, and she's becoming much more brave and confident to the whips. You can see that in these clips, like I'm using them a lot, and she's not running away in fear. But she just felt irritated, I think. She was like, why do you keep nagging me with these tools of yours? I'm trying and you're irritating. And so she just kicked right out at them, and I had a very instantaneous response. I just walloped her on the butt as she ran away. So I know many people will question that reaction, and I agree it is one to be questioned, because punishment rarely works unless applied instantaneously, which it was in this case, but it is questionable. I can say she hasn't tried to kick at the whips again, but it's something that's up for debate. In spite of me being upset about the kick, we did move on in that session and introduce backing up from the front for the first time with pretty good success. She stuck with me for the conversation and was actually pretty quick picking up on this new concept. So I was really happy with that in spite of everything, we were still able to progress to drawing straight towards me, stopping, and backing up, all from the front of the horse as I'm showing here. The second session of the week actually started pretty strong. We began by reviewing the following of the shoulder work, and I practiced walking on the outside of the circle with Limra on my inside shoulder. And I also practiced shoulder switches at the walk and a variety of different figure 8 patterns with me both on the inside and the outside, and switching from the inside to the outside and the outside to the inside. So as you can see in this clip, we had just a really lovely following of the shoulder start. And then we even did some faster trotter tolt at the shoulder, which went really well. I thought it was neat. Sometimes she really does offer some beautiful moments in tolt as she's speeding up or slowing down when she's following at the shoulder, which is just fun to observe and bodes well for gait training. And we also introduced pivoting the shoulders around the hindquarters for the first time in this session with really good results. She really figured it out quickly how to respond to a backing up cue from the one whip while yielding her shoulders off the other whip and staying with me but curving her body away and stepping across with the one front foot over the other front foot. So I was really happy with how that exercise progressed. It took a little troubleshooting and experimenting, but she picked it up quickly. She also showed beautiful bend on the circles around me here to both the right and the left and walk. So everything started well. So it wasn't until I tried to add energy and really work on the trot circles that I ran into issues. And it was primarily an issue that she would trot or add energy and come straight towards me, but she didn't want to maintain that energy on a curved trajectory around me. And so she would either blast off and run away from me or gradually drift off, but she was not staying connected and staying around me in that faster speed. And it looked very much like you're seeing on this clip for a majority of the latter part of this session, and it was to both directions, both going left and right, that I was having this issue. So I was like, okay, I'm going to slow it down to walk, and we'll just work on maintaining walk, but working on distance control, because I felt like part of it was she didn't want to maintain the trot and stay equidistant from me. So I was like, we'll work on this, just distance control at walk. And unfortunately, everything just had totally deteriorated. So not only had I failed to get the trot circles that I was hoping for, but I also lost my connection at the walk and lost a lot of consistency and bend and distance control at the walk. And she started leaving me quite a bit, even in these simple maneuvers. So that was really tough and very frustrating. We ended on a semi-okay note, but I was really worried after this session about what we would do going forward. So at the start of the next session, I decided to just begin the session with connection. So just spending time with Limra in a state of non-asking, with the whips on the ground and me just kind of hanging out with her, letting her nuzzle me, explore my hair, kind of just be in a relaxed state without me asking anything of her. No requirements, no demands, just being. In the trot circles, one of the things I felt like she was struggling with was bend, so I thought working on a hindquarter yield might help. She started out leaving me, and I had to play around with some different possible ways of introducing this exercise at Liberty. But I was ultimately successful and got a nice hindquarter yield crossing the hind legs in both directions using my body position in the whips. Then after that, I decided to just dive right into the trot circles, and this is where things just got really rough. This was my longest session. We went over 40 minutes, which that's extremely rare in Liberty that I ever work a horse that long. And I tried 1,001 different tricks, it felt like, in regards to my footwork, using the edge of the round pen, controlling the direction, and it just looked a lot like this. I'd get moments on a circle, and then she'd tear off, and I'd try to catch the eye, and she'd maybe come running towards me, but then the instant, as I'm showing here, that I try to get her to circle again, at any speed, she would run off. After much frustration and after trying a bunch of different tricks, I finally got circles going to the left, and I was like, yay, okay, we're making some progress. And then I decided to change directions and go to the right, and she was even more challenging to the right. But I did ultimately persevere and finally get some circles to the right again. We were both exhausted. I probably would have given up without Terrell's support. He really pushed me to repeat the circles until I finally got the results I was looking for. And then at the very end, I was really, really hot, so I took off my jacket. And I wanted to cool her out a bit because she was breathing quite hard. So I was like, you know what? I could just maybe use my jacket to start some desensitization work, because at that point I had never even attempted any sort of real desensitization work other than teaching her to be braver to the whips. And I wasn't sure quite how to go about it, but I just kind of played with the concept of trying to draw her toward the jacket. And she was pretty nervous about it in the beginning, so I did use the wall in my whips to create a funnel that helped funnel her towards my right shoulder, opposite the whips. And then anytime she would sniff the jacket or look at the jacket or draw better towards my shoulder, I'd release the whips and take steps back. And it was kind of neat. She started to think about it, and we walked around and worked on her chasing the jacket. And we did it in both directions, and she got to the point where I was actually able to rub her over her back with my jacket. And my jacket was pretty sweaty and disgusting at that point. So she was pretty sweaty as well, and it was a little messy, but it actually turned out to be a kind of cool thing. And she clearly still had enough energy to move away. Like you see there, she still would move away for a couple steps, but we were able to have this slow conversation, all in walk, about building confidence and drawing towards this new and worrisome object. And it was kind of a neat way to end. I, enjoyed kind of walking around with her in the end and feeling that, yes, we did really, really push that trot circle issue, but we were able to also introduce something kind of new and interesting and build off of some of that really strong draw that we had created in this session. Ultimately, I am super happy that I did push through and find at the end of the week this really great session. I also wonder if there is some benefit to not being able to just simply force the horse on a trot circle. Normally, you have youngsters that you're starting under saddle trotting on a trot circle very early on in the training. And you're just pulling on the lead rope to keep the circle. And although this approach left us both very tired, it did result in Limiter making very clear choices to behave differently in the end. So far, I feel the Liberty Start does allow expression of more emotions on the horse's part. They get to show exactly how they feel about doing a certain thing, and although we make some behaviors much easier and more comfortable and other behaviors more difficult and less comfortable, they do ultimately have the freedom at liberty to make their own choices. I feel when Limbra does accomplish a behavior and she truly understands it at liberty, I can really trust that behavior is something she's truly comfortable with, because she does have some options. She can make some choices. Options with certain repercussions, choices with certain repercussions, but options nonetheless. I want to wrap up this video summary by just saying that throughout this week, Terrell was probably one of the most important sources of support for me. And just also someone to bounce ideas off of and go, hey, I didn't feel good about this. What do you think? And I wanted to share with you all a little bit of video footage where I'm not taking the sound out, because I want you all to hear how important his support has been this week. And you can hear him guiding me through and helping me figure out these circles and these transitions and this flow with Limra as we go.
Good. This is like relaxing too. This is just as good as stopping to a certain degree. But it keeps it moving the whole time. And then you can go right back into something. Good. And then maybe push the speed for a second. Around you. God. And then slow her down and then just walk away and have her follow you again. Yeah. And then from there you can just practice your swapping shoulders. Just stuff like that, just keeping it fluid. Or just at the walk even have it just switching shoulders. Not necessarily doing stuff, but that's fine too. And the only reason I say that, because you want her to be able to be fluid, I feel like, in her transitions. And doing a lot of stopping isn't always helpful with that. For example. Good. And there she gets to relax, but she doesn't get to stop and sniff. And then just swap the shoulder with her real quick. So just have to be on the inside. Good. Good. And then you could stop and pet her.
So anyway, folks, that's it for now. Leave your comments, your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you.